They were 13 and 11 years old when their mother brought them into my office for me to straighten out. Two boys, Ronnie and James, both looking kind of sheepish and wishing they were anywhere else than in my office. Their mother was fresh from a church belonging to one of those Lutheran synods that has rather strict regulations about who can or can't receive communion, and she thought our church should have a similar strict standard. So she brought them up to explain why she was blocking them from communion and expecting me to back her up in the family argument. I was going to disappoint her. I mean, you know that, right? And really doubly disappoint her by neither backing her up nor giving her a kind of clear alternative rule for her and her kids to follow. She came from one of those traditions that figures that a trip to the pastor's or priest's office is a trip to find out the answer. One of those from God's lips to your ears kinds of certainties. She got, as what you probably know you get when you come into one of our offices, you get a helping of on the one hand, but on the other hand, and a little bit of, well, there are various answers in the many strands of the Christian tradition. And of course, probably a large share of, and what do you think? She came into her office hoping to sail away on the good ship Certainty, and she got cast into the waters of ambiguity. Anyway, I disappointed her. I told her that we don't have an age requirement to receive communion in the United Church of Christ. That's why the boys had probably seen younger kids and youth than themselves receive communion. Yeah, a lot younger. The older boy, Ronnie, chimed in with resentment. But you certainly have to be a member of the church first, the mother went on, hopefully. You know what's coming. Nope, you don't have to be a member of the church, but your family has to belong, right? She and her husband hadn't yet joined the church. They're still members of the old church. And here it came again. Nope, we don't require that either. See, Mom, we told you, the younger James proclaimed, sticking his chin out in goat-like defiance. She made one last attempt. Well, maybe we could let the older boy do communion and make the younger one wait. Now, the younger James looked daggers at his mom, while the older boy smugly smirked. Well, it's up to the parents, of course, I said, but the church doesn't make that kind of distinction. As I said, I disappointed her. Though we did come to a compromise where I agreed to bring the boys back to my office and talk to them more about communion before they would receive communion a couple of weeks from there. The boys, of course, were thrilled to hear they would come back to the pastor's office for another talk. But I did see them both smile with satisfaction a couple of weeks later as the plate came across, was handed to them, they received the elements, and then with pride passed it on to the next person. Maybe another pastor would have handled this differently, but I have a tough time imagining any prerequisites or requirements before allowing somebody to receive these gifts, to come to this table. First of all, it's not my table. I mean, I have no business deciding who can or can't come here and receive these gifts. And the fact is, it's not even our table. We're not a club. We're not a secret society or a fraternal order. We're the Church of Jesus Christ, and so that's not our table. That's Christ's table. And we all know who he ate with: sinners and slaves and collectors and tax collectors and prostitutes, Pharisees and party crashers. Even at the Last Supper, he broke bread with his betrayer, with the one who was going to deny him, with those who proved to be faithless and fearful disciples. We know who he ate with. Everybody. It's like our reading says this morning, when the Son of Man comes in glory, all the nations will be gathered with him. All the nations. Everybody. That's who he ate with. That's who he lived for. That's who he died for. That's who's welcome at this table of grace. Everybody. Because that's the way Jesus wanted it. Well, maybe you're like that well-meaning mother who wanted to know the rules, the limits, the requirements, the criteria, the cost of admission. And none of that is our business. If we are to take Jesus at his word, this is up to God to figure out, this sheep and goats, worthy and unworthy, wise and foolish, faithful and faithless. Did you notice something about this parable? That the sheep and the goats asked the very same question of the king. Lord, when was it we saw you hungry and thirsty, or a stranger, or naked, or whatever? Both groups asked the very same question. Neither group was able to clearly sense the divine presence in their everyday transactions. So the difference between the two was not their ability to believe in or see God. Yet even though they asked the same question, the thought behind it seems quite different, doesn't it? So the first group, there's kind of surprise. Gee, I didn't know you were there, Jesus, when I volunteered at the homeless shelter. When I dropped off food at the food pantry, when I sat with somebody in church who needed to talk, when I stopped by the hospital to call on a coworker, I didn't know you were there. The other group seems to be saying something like, well, why didn't you tell me you were going to be there, at the jail with my stupid nephew? I mean, I would have made an effort to go visit him if I knew you were there. I would have been nice to that lady on the plane with the crying baby if that was you. I would have dropped a quarter in that street person's cup. I would have, if I'd only known. Seems to me that second group is trying to figure out the rules, aren't they? The criteria, the requirements, the prerequisites. When Jesus speaks, their first response is not to listen, but to ask, is this going to be on the test? What if we gave that up this morning? What if this morning we really stopped worrying about who's a sheep and who's a goat, who's worthy and who's unworthy, who's good, who's bad, who deserves God's love and who doesn't deserve it? What if we gave that up? What if we really left that to God? And what if we started with us? I mean, with each of us. I mean, with ourselves. What if we stopped trying to figure out if we deserve God's love, deserved God's forgiveness, deserved affirmation, deserved kindness, deserved salvation, and just accepted it all? What if our open communion meant open to you? Sometimes we find it nearly impossible to allow ourselves to really come to the table of Christ's mercy. I mean, not just taking the elements and passing the plate, but taking it in. Taking it in and feeling and sharing the peace. What if we opened up our clenched little hearts and really accepted God's judgment of grace, of free, unearned, unmerited, unfettered forgiveness and love? What if we did that starting today? What if we did that starting with ourselves? What if we did that starting right now?